There are moments in life when everything feels like it's slipping through your hands. The things that once gave you joy now feel distant. The goals that once inspired you no longer make sense. You wake up and wonder, what am I doing? Where am I going? And in that quiet moment of reflection, a deep truth emerges. You feel lost, but being lost is not a failure. It is not a sign that you are broken or weak. It is a signal, a call to pause, to reflect, to return. Not return to what you were, but to something deeper, something more real. We live in a world that tells us to always move forward, to constantly strive, to never stop. But when the inner compass no longer points clearly, speed only takes you further away. What is needed in that moment is not more motion, but presence. What is needed is not noise, but silence. Not a search for something new, but a return to what has always been within you. This moment, right now, is an opportunity. An invitation, not to escape your confusion, but to transform it into clarity. And it begins with 5 simple, powerful shifts. Let us begin. When you find yourself lost in life, the natural reaction is often movement. You want to do something, change something, go somewhere. Anywhere that might lead you away from the discomfort, the confusion, the weight of uncertainty. But the paradox is that the more you run, the more lost you feel. This is because what is lost is not outside of you. It is the connection to your inner clarity that has been clouded. Therefore, the first step is not action. The first step is stillness. To sit in stillness is not an act of doing nothing. It is a deliberate, powerful practice. You are not wasting time. You are allowing the internal dust to settle. Imagine a jar of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water stays cloudy. If you set it down and leave it undisturbed, the sediment slowly sinks to the bottom and the water becomes clear again. This is the effect of stillness on your mind. When the world feels overwhelming, when your path seems unclear, and when every option seems equally uncertain, the greatest wisdom is to stop, not as a way of giving up, but as a way of returning. Stop the searching outside. Stop the endless analyzing. Stop the desperate need for answers. Just sit, in silence, in presence, in full awareness of yourself as you are confused, restless, uncertain. Allow yourself to experience that honestly. The discipline of sitting in stillness is a practice that goes against the modern tendency to always be occupied, always stimulated. But when you are constantly reacting to life, you do not have the space to observe it. You do not have the space to listen, and what you cannot listen to, you cannot understand. So the first thing you must do when you are lost is to create that space, and that space begins with silence. Each morning, before you take on the responsibilities of the day, give yourself the gift of 10 minutes. No phone, no talking, no external input, just you and your breath. Sit on the floor or on a chair or wherever you are comfortable. Keep your spine upright, not rigid but awake. Let your hands rest naturally and then simply observe your breath, the inhale, the exhale. That is all. The mind will resist. Thoughts will come. You will want to get up, to check something, to remember something, to plan. This is natural. The practice is not to eliminate thoughts. The practice is to notice them and to come back. Each time you bring your attention back to the breath, you are strengthening your awareness. You are training the mind not to be led by every thought, every emotion, every impulse. At first, this may feel like nothing is happening, but slowly you will notice subtle changes. You will begin to witness the mind more clearly. You will see the patterns that keep repeating. You will recognize the fears that have been running in the background. You will realize how often your thoughts are not grounded in the present moment, but are caught in imagined futures or replaying past regrets. And just this awareness begins the process of transformation. Stillness reveals what constant activity hides. You start to feel again, not just surface emotions, but the deeper undercurrents. You may feel grief or anger or deep exhaustion. These are not problems, they are signals, they are messengers. They tell you what you have been carrying, what you have ignored, what you need to release, and you must feel them fully before you can let them go. You may also begin to experience moments of peace, brief but unmistakable, a moment where your thoughts quiet down, a moment where you feel completely present, a moment where the need to fix, to change, to solve fades. These are glimpses of your natural state, not something to be achieved, but something to return to. This is who you are beneath the noise, and every time you sit in stillness, you move closer to that center. There is also a great humility in stillness. It teaches you to stop trying to control everything, to stop expecting immediate answers, to surrender to the fact that life unfolds in its own time, not yours. This does not mean passivity, it means wisdom. The wisdom to act only when the heart is quiet, when the mind is clear, when the motivation comes from a place of truth rather than fear. Over time, this practice of sitting in silence becomes a sanctuary. It becomes a place you can return to, no matter what chaos is happening around you. It becomes a reminder that your true direction cannot be found through external noise. It arises from inner alignment, and that alignment comes only through presence, through awareness, through listening deeply. So even when you feel lost, uncertain, confused, especially then sit, breathe, be still. Trust that beneath the turbulence of the surface, there is a deeper current guiding you. But you will not hear it if you are always moving. You must become still enough for the voice of clarity to speak, and once you hear it, even if it's only a whisper, you will begin to see again. You will begin to walk again, not in circles, but forward. Because now, the movement comes from within. When the direction of life feels uncertain, and the path ahead appears to be hidden in mist, many people feel compelled to wait for clarity before taking action. They believe that a sense of purpose must arrive first, that they must understand the full map before they take a single step. But this belief creates paralysis. It traps the mind in endless questioning and delays the return to balance. The truth is that clarity is not the cause of discipline, it is the result. When you are unsure of the direction, it is not answers you must chase, it is order, structure, routine, not for the sake of productivity, but to stabilize the ground beneath your feet. It is common to feel overwhelmed when you cannot see far ahead. The future becomes a burden, and the past becomes a chain. But within this confusion lies an opportunity to practice even when the mind protests. To return to a simple ritual, a small routine, something repeatable and grounding that does not depend on motivation. Because when everything around you feels uncertain, a daily discipline becomes your compass. One of the simplest, yet most overlooked truths is that small acts done consistently change not just your habits, but your identity. To choose to rise at the same time each day, to move your body with attention, to prepare your food with care, these are not empty motions. They are signals to your inner self. They remind you that while you may not control all things, you still possess the ability to shape yourself. This shaping, this crafting of inner strength, is far more important than having all the answers. Discipline teaches the mind to obey the higher will. When you commit to a daily ritual, whether it is a morning stretch, a moment of silence, a simple task done with full presence, you create a rhythm. That rhythm brings order to the mind, and order clears the fog. But discipline is not about punishment. It is about refinement. Each repetition of a conscious action brings you closer to balance. You begin to feel anchored, stable, alive in the moment, regardless of external outcomes. People often wait for motivation to strike, but motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls like the wind. Discipline, however, is not emotional. It does not rely on how you feel. It is a decision, a choice repeated until it becomes part of your being. It is what pulls you forward on the days when your emotions betray you, when the mind is clouded, when everything feels heavy. Those are the moments when discipline becomes the greatest ally. There is also a deeper power in ritual beyond productivity. It creates sacred space. When you engage in a daily practice, be it movement, writing, reflection, or stillness, you are declaring to yourself that life is worthy of your presence, that even in uncertainty you will show up fully. This commitment becomes a kind of devotion, not to perfection, but to awareness, to inner order, to self-respect. And when the mind is focused on a consistent task, the wandering thoughts begin to quiet down. Your energy is no longer scattered across regrets and worries. It returns to you. Slowly, the mind becomes less reactive. It becomes a servant, not a master. And this is the shift that allows clarity to arise, not from thinking more, but from thinking less. From doing one thing well over and over until it becomes a mirror reflecting your state back to you. There is also something humbling in repetition. It teaches patience. In a world that celebrates novelty and speed, returning to the same practice each day reminds you that depth is found in simplicity. You begin to notice what you overlooked before, the way your breath moves through your body, the tightness in your shoulders, the thoughts that rise uninvited. And instead of trying to change everything, you begin to observe, you begin to accept, you begin to work with what is, not what should be. This is the power of a small, intentional practice. It meets you where you are. It does not demand brilliance. It does not require perfect understanding. It only asks for presence, repetition, humility. Through this, transformation begins not in the outer world, but within. You may not know your destination, but you begin to walk with steadier steps. You begin to breathe more fully. You begin to carry yourself with quiet strength. The foundation of all inner growth is consistency. The body knows this. Muscles grow through repetition. Skills sharpen through rehearsal, and the mind, too, becomes disciplined through this same law. But unlike physical training, the training of the mind and spirit begins invisibly. You may not see results in the first week or the second, but something is shifting. Your energy is gathering. Your attention is sharpening. Your emotional waves begin to soften. To practice discipline when the direction is unclear is not blind effort. It is wisdom. It is the understanding that life will not always reveal the entire path at once. Sometimes it only reveals the next breath, the next step, and that is enough. If you can trust in the process of showing up every day at the same time with the same effort, you are already moving, you are already healing. You are already returning. It is not important that the ritual be complicated. In fact, the simpler, the better. What matters is the consistency, the sincerity, the attention you bring to it. You may begin with just 5 minutes of breathing, or a single cup of tea drank in complete stillness, or writing one sentence in a journal. It is not the quantity, it is the quality of presence. This is what changes your internal state. Let the ritual become your foundation. Let it be the one thing that remains steady when all else feels uncertain. Do not ask it to solve your problems. Ask only that it ground you, that it bring you back to this moment, and trust that from this moment, the next one will become clearer. When the mind is overwhelmed and the heart is heavy, it is easy to fall into confusion. Life begins to feel like a blur. You move from task to task, day to day, but there is no presence in your actions. Thoughts become repetitive, emotions build without release, the inner voice becomes faint, drowned beneath noise. In such a moment, it becomes necessary to return to simplicity, to reconnect with the essence of life, without distractions, without excess, without complexity. Simplicity is not the absence of ambition, nor is it the rejection of responsibility. It is the conscious decision to remove what is unnecessary so that what is essential may rise to the surface. In a life filled with stimulation, choices, and endless input, complexity becomes a prison. And the first sign that one is lost is often this: life feels too loud, too fast, too crowded. In such moments, clarity can only be found by stepping back and letting go. The mind was not designed to hold everything at once. It needs space, space to breathe, to reflect, to feel. When you simplify, you create that space. You let go of the pressure to solve everything immediately. You step away from the chaos and begin to see again, not through a lens of anxiety, but with gentle attention. And this act of seeing, this quiet observation, reconnects you with yourself. The first form of simplicity is found in breath. The breath is always present, always available. You do not need to understand advanced philosophy or perform difficult techniques. You simply need to sit and watch the breath enter and leave the body. Even just a few minutes of breathing with full attention restores a sense of calm. It reminds you that life is not a storm to be controlled, but a rhythm to be felt. In addition to breathe, the body itself is a gateway to simplicity. Physical awareness grounds the mind. When you place attention on how your feet feel on the floor, how your spine aligns, how your hands rest, these are not insignificant observations. They are the bridge between the scattered mind and the grounded self. When your awareness returns to the body, it also returns to the moment. Many people try to fix confusion with thinking. They believe that more analysis will lead to more clarity. But when the mind is already clouded, more thinking only deepens the fog. What is needed instead is space, stillness, simplicity. You must put the thoughts down and return to the basics: breath, body, rhythm. You do not have to fix everything. You only need to arrive fully where you are. One of the most overlooked aspects of simplicity is routine. A simple routine, done with full presence, becomes a powerful practice. Preparing your morning tea, walking slowly without distraction, cleaning your space with awareness. These are not empty chores. They are spiritual practices when done with intention. They bring your attention out of the abstract and into the real. In returning to these basic acts, you begin to feel yourself again. The mind begins to slow. The heart begins to speak. Your emotions, no longer suppressed or ignored, begin to soften. You may not have all the answers yet, but you no longer feel as overwhelmed by the questions. Simplicity gives you the strength to carry uncertainty without being drowned by it. Another place to practice simplicity is in speech. Many words are spoken out of habit, anxiety, or the need to fill silence. But when you choose your words carefully, when you speak less and listen more, you discover a different kind of presence. Silence itself becomes a teacher. You learn to be more intentional, not just with your voice, but with your energy. You realize that not everything needs to be said, and not every thought needs to be shared. This same principle applies to your environment. The external world reflects the internal state. A cluttered room often reflects a cluttered mind. When you clean your space, organize your surroundings, or remove what you no longer need, you are also cleansing the mind. These simple actions have powerful effects. They bring order, they bring peace. They remind you that you can influence your own state through small, conscious choices. The practice of returning to simplicity is not about escape. It is about engagement. Engagement with the present, the real, the essential. The more you simplify, the more sensitive you become. You begin to notice the wind brushing your skin, the warmth of your tea, the sound of birds. These are not distractions. They are the subtle signals of life. They are what you miss when you are always rushing. As this awareness deepens, gratitude arises naturally, not forced, not practiced as a concept, but experienced as a feeling. When life is simplified, you see more clearly what truly matters. A warm meal, a deep breath, a kind word, these become sacred, and in appreciating the simple, you begin to heal. You begin to see that the answers you were searching for were not hidden in complexity, but waiting patiently in the present. To live simply is not to live small. It is to live deeply. You do not need more to feel more alive. You need less noise, less distraction, less striving. And in that less, you discover more peace, more clarity, more connection. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment to return to this state. You can begin now with the smallest of actions, repeated with awareness. Even when life feels chaotic, even when the future is unclear, you still have the ability to return to what is real. You still have access to the present moment, to your breath, to your body, to the quiet rituals that bring you home. Complexity dissolves in presence. And from presence, direction will arise, not as a sudden revelation, but as a quiet knowing that grows with each step, each breath, each act of simplicity. When the mind becomes clouded, it is not because life has suddenly lost its meaning. It is because awareness has been pulled away from the present moment. Caught between thoughts of the past and fears of the future, the mind becomes like a storm. It rushes, it spins, it forgets to return to the now. In these moments, many search for answers through thinking, believing that more thoughts will untangle the confusion, but the opposite is true. What the mind needs is not more content, it needs more clarity. And clarity is found not in the mind, but in the body. The body does not exist in yesterday or tomorrow. It exists only here, only now. It does not dwell in regret or projection. It breathes, it feels. It moves, so when the thoughts become too heavy, the path forward is to step out of the head and back into the body. This is where stillness begins, not as a concept, but as an experience. Movement is not a distraction from inner work. It is part of it. It is one of the oldest forms of medicine, a slow walk in silence, a deliberate stretch at sunrise, a steady breath taken during a simple posture. These are not meaningless acts, they are invitations. Each movement is an opportunity to become aware again. Each step, each breath, reconnects you with presence. When a person feels lost, it often feels like they are floating without direction. They are disconnected from a sense of grounding. Movement becomes the anchor, a way to re-enter the world, not through thought, but through sensation. You begin to feel your feet touching the earth. You notice the rhythm of your breathing. You observe the sensation of your muscles stretching, contracting, relaxing. The inner chatter does not disappear instantly, but it begins to fade into the background. Through consistent movement, awareness deepens. You no longer move unconsciously. You begin to recognize the difference between tension and relaxation, between resistance and flow. You start to understand how emotion lives in the body. Anxiety may tighten the chest, anger may grip the jaw, sadness may weigh the shoulders. By moving the body with attention, you also begin to move the emotions stored within it. This is not about performance, not about how flexible or strong the body appears. It is about presence. Even the most basic movement, a breath raised with the arms, a turn of the head, a mindful bend can become a meditation if it is done with full awareness. And this awareness does not remain in the body alone. It begins to quiet the mind, because the more deeply you feel, the less you need to think. Stillness is not always achieved by sitting. Sometimes, stillness of mind is best reached through motion of body. When movement is slow and deliberate, the mind is drawn into it. It is forced to follow the rhythm. It must listen. It must pay attention. And in this attention, the usual distractions fall away. The inner voice that is always speaking begins to soften. You are no longer just thinking about life. You are participating in it fully. This kind of movement does not require a gym nor special equipment. It can happen anywhere, in a quiet room, on a shaded path. Beside a tree, what matters is your awareness. Are you with the movement, or are you escaping it? Are you breathing with it, or resisting it? These are the questions that open the door to deeper presence. And presence itself is healing. It brings the scattered parts of you back together. When the mind is not fighting the moment, the body begins to relax, the breath deepens, the nervous system calms, you begin to feel more whole. From this state, choices become clearer. You are no longer reacting out of confusion, but responding from a grounded place. The body teaches you how to be patient. Movement must unfold over time. You cannot rush a stretch. You cannot force a breath. You cannot jump ahead in your practice. And so you learn to slow down. You learn to listen, not just to the body, but to the moment itself. This listening extends to other areas of life. You begin to hear your intuition more clearly. You begin to notice subtle emotions, subtle signals. The noise that once drowned out your inner guidance becomes quieter. In learning to move with awareness, you begin to see how much of life you were missing before. You were eating without tasting, walking without noticing, breathing without feeling. But now, through conscious movement, the senses awaken again. Life becomes more vivid, more present, not because life has changed, but because you have returned to it. There is a rhythm in all things, in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the rise and fall of your steps. When you move with presence, you begin to align with this rhythm. You become less hurried, less restless. You begin to feel a natural order that was always there, hidden beneath distraction. This rhythm brings calm, it brings clarity, it brings a quiet sense of direction, not as a fixed plan, but as a moment-to-moment guidance. Even when you are unsure of your path, even when you feel lost in the big picture, the next small step can be taken in awareness. A stretch, a breath, a walk. You do not need to have all the answers to move. You only need to move with sincerity, with attention, with presence. This is how the path reveals itself, not in flashes of sudden insight, but in quiet steps taken with full awareness. The body knows how to find balance. It remembers how to heal. It remembers how to be here. All it needs is for you to return to it. And through movement, you return, not just to the body, but to life itself. When a person feels lost, the mind naturally turns inward. Thoughts become heavy, questions multiply. A quiet despair settles in, one that whispers, "You are not enough. You have nothing to offer." And in this state, it becomes easy to withdraw, to shrink into the self, to isolate. The belief takes root that one must first be complete before giving anything to the world. But this is not how inner transformation begins. In truth, one of the most powerful ways to find yourself is to shift the focus from self to service. When you offer something to another, not because you are overflowing, but because you are present, you awaken a part of yourself that cannot be touched by confusion. This kind of giving does not require perfection. It does not demand that you have all the answers. It simply asks for sincerity. Even a small act of kindness, offered without expectation, becomes a flame in the darkness. There is a deep and quiet energy in helping others. It removes the heavy weight of self-centered thinking. It interrupts the endless loop of internal questioning and redirects awareness outward, not in escape, but in connection. To see another clearly is to momentarily step out of your own mind. In that moment, something subtle happens. You remember your own strength, not through thought, but through action. Offering support to someone in need, even a word, even silence held with compassion, brings meaning back into the present moment. It reminds you that you are still capable of creating change, however small, and this sense of capability is often what is lost when one feels directionless. The belief that you are powerless, adrift. But when you extend your hand, when you offer presence, you begin to dissolve that illusion. To serve is not always to do something grand. Sometimes it is to listen deeply, to notice someone who is often unseen, to offer encouragement when you have little left. The strength does not come from your current state of mind. It comes from your essence, the part of you that remains untouched by confusion, untouched by fear. Even when the mind tells you that you have nothing to offer, the act of giving proves otherwise. You begin to see that value is not something you earn. It is something you embody in action, a kind word, a simple gesture, an honest smile. These things cost nothing, yet they shift the energy of a space. They uplift not only others, but also the one who gives. In service, you become a mirror. By reminding another of their worth, you remember your own. By offering presence to another, you reconnect with the power of the present moment. And it is always the present that holds the seed of clarity. The future remains uncertain. The past cannot be changed. But here now in this very breath, you can offer something, you can give. There is also humility in serving, a recognition that all beings suffer, all beings seek meaning, and none are immune to moments of feeling lost. This recognition dissolves the illusion of separation. It brings forth compassion, and compassion is not softness. It is strength. It is the courage to be open, to meet life as it is, to meet others where they are. You begin to see that in helping someone else stand, you become more stable yourself. You feel your own feet more firmly on the ground. You begin to walk again, not for the sake of arrival, but to be of use. Purpose does not always come in grand vision. Often it comes quietly, through a conversation, through silent presence, through being the calm in someone else's storm. This is how you transform confusion into clarity, not by waiting for your own mind to become clear, but by offering clarity to another. The act itself clears the fog. It breaks the paralysis of waiting. It moves energy that was stuck. You become part of the flow again. You feel life moving through you, rather than standing outside it. Helping others is not self-sacrifice, it is self-remembrance. You begin to feel again, not just your own pain, but also your capacity to hold space, to bring light, to affect the world in subtle ways. Even if no one thanks you, even if no one notices, the act of giving is its own nourishment. You start to understand that every person you meet is also carrying their own uncertainty, their own quiet battles, and suddenly the world feels less hostile, less isolating, more human. Connection begins to replace confusion. Presence begins to replace panic, and the direction you were seeking begins to form, not as a detailed plan but as a feeling, a direction sensed not in thought but in the heart. So when you do not know what to do for yourself, do something for another. Do not wait to feel ready. Do not wait for your emotions to align perfectly. Let the action itself reshape you. Let it call forth the parts of you that are not lost, that were never lost. Your strength, your compassion, your presence. They were always there, waiting to be used. In this way, service becomes both the path and the practice. It aligns you with something greater than your confusion. It roots you in the moment. It reminds you that even in uncertainty, you can be a source of steadiness. You can still contribute, you can still shine, and in doing so, the direction you were seeking begins to emerge, not given from the outside, but uncovered from within. When life feels uncertain, when your thoughts are heavy and your direction unclear, the path forward is not always found through seeking more answers. It is found through returning to stillness, returning to discipline, returning to simplicity, returning to the body, and ultimately returning to others through service. These 5 practices are not complex, they are not hidden, they are always within reach. And though they may seem small, when practiced with sincerity and consistency, they become powerful tools to realign your inner compass. You were never truly lost. You were simply disconnected from the present, from your inner clarity, from the rhythm of life. But by grounding yourself in these timeless principles, you begin to see again, you begin to feel again, you begin to move not blindly but with awareness, and in that awareness a quiet strength grows. From that strength the next step reveals itself. No one can walk your path for you, but these practices can light the way. Trust the process, honor the discipline, and walk with presence, one breath, one step, one choice at a time. May your journey be filled with clarity, courage, and deep peace. Thank you for being here, and good luck on your path ahead.